Well. Here we are, July 24th, 2025, and the Seattle Mariners have made a big trade, according to multiple outlets, first reported by Jeff Passan or Passan or Jeffy P. Or no, that's it. I don't think anyone calls him Jeffy P either. The Seattle Mariners have acquired an infielder from the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's Josh Naylor. And in return, the Seattle Mariners are giving two pitchers, Ashton Izzi and Brandyn Garcia. Before we get started, before we break it all down, let's thank Simply Seattle for helping make this video possible. They are the very best in Seattle sports gear. Great stuff for the Mariners, the Seahawks, the Kraken, the Huskies. Love this shirt. You can find it all at Simply Seattle. And once you find it all at Simply Seattle, use code MOLLYWOP15, MOLLYWHOP15. Great deal from great people. Please support Simply Seattle. Link in the description. Okay. I'm shocked the return is this low. And people will disagree. You know, your mileage may vary. I've talked about that term before. It is a super easy yes for the Seattle Mariners, what it comes down to. What it comes down to is this is just a super easy yes for the Seattle Mariners. That doesn't mean the Diamondbacks did horribly. I would argue that the Diamondbacks end up with a better return than what they gave. You know, Slade Ciccone has had a nice year for Cleveland, but I think you'd trade Slade Ciccone for a half a year of Josh Naylor and two pitching prospects that have a chance to be solid arms. But it's a really easy yes for the Mariners because you don't move any of, in my personal opinion, you don't move any of their top 15 prospects. You don't move anyone that I think moves the needle. So to be able to get a player like Naylor, and we'll talk about this at the end of the video too. Don't think that I'm done talking about this. To be able to get a player like Naylor, kind of rhymes, player like Naylor. No, it doesn't. To get a player like that and not give up any of your upper echelon guys, which you shouldn't give up an upper echelon guy, but I did think it would cost more than this. So again, to be able to get this dude without giving up anything that prevents you from getting other dudes is really good. It's really, really good. Let's take a look at what type of player Josh Naylor is. So apologies if you hear my phone going off. I'm getting a lot of, this is where you find out that Chris Crawford is relatively famous because I'm getting a lot of people asking, there's one right now, me to come on and talk about the trade, but I'm doing my YouTube video right now. Gosh dang it. I'll probably go on your show tomorrow. Okay, so Josh Naylor, a guy who was a first-round pick by the Miami Marlins way back in 2015. He gets traded from Miami to San Diego in the Andrew Kashner deal. Then he gets traded from San Diego to the Cleveland in the Mike Clevenger deal. And then he gets traded from Cleveland to Arizona in the Slade Ciccone deal. But that's really the Josh Naylor deal. That's the first time he's kind of the headliner in a deal, but not the last time, because now he's going to be playing for his fourth major league team, and fifth organization. But that's not a, why is this guy keep getting moved around? But he's a 28-year-old with a career slash of 269, 329, 444. That's a 773 OPS. That's an OPS plus of 114. It did not start out great. His 2020 in particular, you know, the year that we kind of don't count, was not good, and neither was 2021. But 2022, he hits 20 homers with a 771 OPS, and then really takes a step forward in 2023 and 2024. Yeah, 2023 still the best season of his career. 308, 354, 489. That's an 842 OPS. That's an OPS plus of 130, 17 homers, and 97 RBI in 121 games. 2024, he hits a career high 31 homers, 243 batting average, 320 on base percentage, 456 slugging. That's 776, 118 OPS. Worth pointing out, he also drives in 108 runs, whether you care about that or not. 2025, and that's what we really care about, right? 292, 360, 447, That's an OPS plus of 124, an OPS of 807, 11 homers. And the kind of fun thing about Josh Naylor, too, is he's a sneaky good base stealer. He stole in 11 and 13 attempts this year. He stole 10 and 13 attempts the year before that. Only 6 in 2024 when he was more station to station. But despite not exactly having elite speed, and I think that's an understatement, he is a guy who can make a little bit of an impact on the bases. You have to pay a little attention. It's not something you should count on. This guy is really slow. He is in the 3rd percentile in sprint speed, and that leads us into the Savant page here. So you take a look at Josh Naylor. He's 5'10", 235. I will guess shorter on the height, and I'll guess a little more on the pounds. That's not an insult. It's just, that's just the way it is, okay? But despite that, he's not exactly what you typically expect from a triple B. And by triple B, I mean a big, beefy boy. The hit tool is ahead of the power tool. Despite the 31 homers last year, despite the despite the 31 homers last year, despite the 489 slugging percentage in 2023, he's more about hitting for average. And 292 this year, an expected batting average in the 90th percentile, expected weighted on base average of 350. This guy slashes the baseball, and it's not a ton of hard contact, but he finds the ability to put the baseball where they ain't. And he puts the ball in the gaps a lot too, because, with a 447 slugging percentage, it shows you that it's not just homers, because there haven't been a lot this year, only 11, but he does put the ball into those gaps. Helped a little bit by the fact that Arizona has friendly gaps, but we have seen him hit a good amount of doubles and a good amount of extra base hits, not playing in those relatively friendly confines. Expected slugging percentage of 448 which is in the 57th percentile, kind of tells you that. Doesn't barrel the baseball a lot at 6.6%. We talked about the lack of hard contact, 40.1%. Doesn't have elite bat speed, but he just squares everything up because he recognizes pitches so well. And this is something fans are really going to like. This guy doesn't strike out. I mean, he does, but he doesn't do it very often. 12.4% of the time does he end up with a K. And he is not the type of guy who isn't striking out because he's not patient. 9.4% walk rate is well above average. A whiff rate of 21% is well above average. He's also a really good bad ball hitter. He swings at pitches outside the strike zone quite a bit. He still shows good patience, but he feels comfortable hitting those pitches outside of the zone and lining them into right center field or left center field. Chase rate in the 12th percentile of 34.8%. So it's not always pretty, but he just kind of seems to find a way to get on. And the Seattle Mariners need a guy like that. The Seattle Mariners need a player like that. Okay, let's take a look at the splits and see some home and away stuff, some stuff about how big of a platoon player is Naylor, and just how things have gone over the month-to-month situation. Month-to-month situation. That's a weird way to put it. So I think the split everybody wants to know, right? What does Josh Naylor do against left-handed pitching? What type of player is Josh Naylor when he's facing that same side? And the answer is it's not as good, but it's not completely unworkable. For his career, he's played 390 games against left-handed pitching. That doesn't tell you anything. 725 plate appearances against southpaws. He's a career 240, 302, 367 hitter with 16 home runs. That's a 670 OPS. It's not good, but it's playable, right? You're just not hitting him in the middle of the order against lefties, or you shouldn't anyway. You shouldn't. This year, for those curious, the splits are pretty similar, right? So you're taking a look here against left-handers, 258, 297, 358. So that's a 655 OPS, which is slightly less power than he's shown in the past against southpaws, but it's not completely unusable. You don't have to have Josh Naylor on the bench against left-handed pitching. You probably want a right-handed guy for late inning situations, or if you're facing a Danny Colombe, and hopefully Danny Colombe pays for the Mariners pretty soon, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's not quite the Luke Raley concerns here, right? He's passable against left-handed pitching. He's really good against right-handed pitching. This year, he has an OPS of 884 against right-handed pitching. For his career, it's an 812 OPS. That is a very, very solid number. Let's take a look at some home and away stats. He's been better at home, really hit for a high average at home. 324, 377, 478. That doesn't surprise me. Naylor's skill set is really kind of perfectly built for what they have there, the gap-to-gap ability. Away, it's 257, 340, 413. Not bad. And guys are usually better at home. Nothing there really stands out to me. I will say a 280 batting average on balls in play away from the friendly confines-ish of Chase Park or Chase Field. 335 at home. That's tough. That's pretty tough. All right. By month, 892 OPS in the first month of the year. Got off to a very good start. May, 759. June, 852. July, he's had some struggles. He's hit 232, 362, 304. He just hasn't had the extra base hit stuff. He has 1 homer and 70 at bats, and he has 1 double in those 70 at bats. I'm not too worried about that. I mean, I'd prefer him to be playing at his absolute best right now, but that's a little too small of sample to be too worried. And it's worth pointing out, April, May hit 318. May hits 284. June hits 311. The average has been there every month except for July. And he's getting on base at a 362 clip this month. So he hasn't been useless by any stretch of the imagination. If you're curious about the batting order stuff, he's hit 4th all year. He's hit 302, 367, 471 when hitting 4th. When hitting 5th, he's hit 270, 347, 382. I'll talk about where I would hit. I almost fell out of my chair there. That was pretty fun. We will talk about where I'd hit him at the end of this video. Okay, let's quickly talk about the prospects. Actually, very quickly, I want to thank Simply Seattle. We already did that. We don't have to do that again. Can you tell? Those of you who've been watching our videos know that these are super off the cuff. Can you tell this one's super off the cuff? Let's talk about the prospects they give up. You've heard of Brandyn Garcia, right? He is a guy who made his MLB debut not very long ago. I happened to mention with my buddy Anders Hurst that I kind of wondered if it was a showcase. Kind of was a showcase, I suppose, because he's getting traded, right? It didn't go great. 2 innings, gave up 1 earned run, 2 total runs. You saw the command issues. You also saw that stuff has a chance to be really good. And if I'm the Diamondbacks, I'm not using Garcia in relief. I'm making that guy a starter. And if you have to move him to relief, so be it. And he's older for where he was drafted. I think he'll turn 26 this year. You know, he's not a spring chicken by prospect terms. But I do think he's a guy who has a chance to be a solid starter. And then, you know, if he has to make that move to the bullpen, the move that the Seattle Mariners thought he had to make, and I'm not saying the Diamondbacks know more than the Mariners or anyone knows. I'm certainly not saying I know more than Justin Hollander or Jerry Dipoto or any of those guys, Scott Hunter. But what I am saying is I think the move to the bullpen had more to do with the roster construction than Brandyn Garcia. Hopefully that makes sense. And if you have a question, maybe I'll give out my cell phone number someday. I will not. The other player that the other player that the Seattle Mariners are giving up in this trade is Ashton Izzi. So Izzi was a 4th round pick in 2022. I think he was out of Illinois, something like that. He was a guy who had committed to go to Wichita State. And then they gave him a big old bonus so that they didn't do that. It's a 6'3" right-hander, shows a plus fastball, a solid slider, a fringy change, and the command is a real issue. The command is a real issue here. And, you know, he walked 59 guys in 110 2/3 innings last year. He walked 21 guys so far in his 47 1/3 innings this year. It's not ideal. It's not ideal in terms of the command, but I do think this stuff would allow him to be a starter. And if he can stay healthy, which is another question mark, he has never thrown more than those 110 2/3 innings that we just mentioned, then, you know, he's got a chance to be a mid-rotation arm. If not, I think he could be pretty good in the bullpen. It just comes down to, again, though, and I mentioned it at the top. I probably mentioned it in the middle. I'll mention it again. This is such an easy yes for Seattle. This is such an easy yes. You're not moving anything close to the top pitching prospects in your system, right? Like, and you still have guys that are going to be of interest on the trade market from the pitching side, not just Ryan Sloan and not just Urangelo Stenjay, right? Michael Morales is going to be of interest. Jeter Martinez, Teddy McGraw, Tyler Guff. I always call it Guff. I think it's actually Go, but there are guys on this. Juan Burgos, Marcelo Perez. Those are all guys that are going to be of interest. They didn't move their best pitching prospects for this guy. Nothing close to it. Such an easy yes. So as for what I would do with Naylor, I would hit him third. I would hit Josh Naylor third. I would go with a lineup of J.P. Crawford, Julio Rodriguez, Josh Naylor, Dumper, Big, Randy Arozarena, Jorge Polanco, 3 other guys. And I think you're going to address, here's the big takeaway too, is the fact that they're not done. They're not even close to done. I would be surprised if they didn't add another bat, another reliever, and I think a starter is also in play here too. I do believe a starter is in play. Now, the question I suppose people ask now is, what do you do with Luke Raley? I think he's just a bench bat now, because I think Dom Canzone has earned the right to be that guy against right-handed pitching. I think he's earned that right, and Luke Raley has not. I still think Luke Raley's a solid baseball player. I kind of love that they have a guy like Luke Raley on their bench now against right-handers. I think it's a good problem to have. And, you know, when you need to have Jorge Polanco have a day off, and you need Cole Young to have a day off, and you have Polanco in the lineup at second base, you know, there's ways to play Luke Raley, but you don't have to now. Longish story short, and let's see, we're at 17 minutes. Holy crap. Long story shorter. This is a plus move for the Seattle Mariners. And you're going to look at a bunch of trade value sheets that tell you a bunch of bull crap. No, because it doesn't take the context here. It doesn't take the context of what Seattle needed at first base. It doesn't take the context of what Seattle has in their farm system. And it doesn't take the context of how badly the Seattle Mariners need to win in 2025. And I'm sorry, they do. They do. The Seattle Mariners need to win baseball games in 2025, and a lot of them. I am currently recording this at 7:39, and they're losing right now 1-0 because former Mariner Yusei Kikuchi is getting them pretty good. So, you know, and I'm not saying Josh Naylor helps a lot against a Yusei Kikuchi, but he helps a lot against right-handers, and he's just good enough against lefties. I'm excited. I'm really excited because I just feel like this is the start. If this is the finish and it's nothing against Josh Naylor, this isn't good enough, right? It can't be just this. It can't be just this, and I don't think it will. And real quick, I think it's important that we criticize the Seattle Mariners when they need to be criticized. I really do. But emphasis on that word when. You can't criticize what the Mariners have done for the overwhelming majority of their trade deadlines. The Paul Sewald trade stunk because of the timing, right? I think the Mariners might end up winning that trade because Ryan Bliss and Dom Canzone are, I think, solid players, right? I hated the timing of it. But look what they did last deadline. Randy Arozarena is a really good baseball player, and I'm sure glad the Seattle Mariners have him. Luis Castillo is a really good baseball player, and I'm sure glad they have him. Justin Turner and Jimmy Garcia, it didn't go great, but I love those type of moves. And I think you're going to see similar ones. But I think you're going to see another splash too. Just the sense that I get from the people I talk to and just in this big old gut of mine. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. Really appreciate it. But let me know what you think, because you may not agree. You may think that this is a lateralish move. I think you're crazy, but you're entitled to your opinion. Entitled's the wrong word, but you have a right to state your opinion. I think this is pretty cool. Good job, Jerry. Good job, Justin.